My name is Andres Kurg. I'm an architectural historian and professor of architecture history at the Estonian Academy of Arts. And my article in the Routledge Handbook presents a close reading of the exhibition Paper Architecture in Moscow in 1984 that brought together a younger generation of Soviet architects. It inaugurated a discussion over the genre of paper projects or paper architecture in the Soviet Union that consisted of conceptual competition entries, narrative drawings and watercolors and posters, the majority of which were unrelated to actual building sites or briefs. The exhibition itself was held in the premises of the editorial office of the literary magazine Yunost, or Youth in Russian, which was located not far from one of the country's largest state design offices, Masprojekt. And over the weeks in August, when the show was open, numerous architects visited it and became the prime interlocutors in discussions over the functions of these works. In my article, I reconstruct the exhibition in detail on the basis of several archival photographs and records, interviews with participants, and articles and discussions in the press at the time. It looks at the ways in which the projects countered the dominant architectural norms and building regulations of the late Soviet period and became an attractive alternative for young architects to the dominant architecture system. These works and the subsequent exhibition provided a platform for communicating their critique to the domestic audience and instigating change through pluralist projects and discussions. There are several works that I analyze in detail. And one of them is Alexander Brodsky's and Ilya Utkin's work titled Dwelling House of Winnie the Pooh, which is a drawing of a single-family dwelling located in between large metropolitan houses in a big city. We see its cozy interior, which contrasts with the bleak apartment buildings that surround it. And we also see the authors themselves, Brodsky and Utkin, sitting at the kitchen table, having a pleasant conversation. And the building took its inspiration from octagonal structures that were used in Leningrad and Moscow for metro ventilation shafts. So it is this kind of a banal everyday object that was projected as an alternative dwelling house. And the work could be seen also as an allegory of late Soviet society when the alienated official public sphere was countered with informal contacts and merry parties in the homes and studios of artists and architects. Another work that I look at closely is a project by one of the initiators of the exhibition, Yuri Avakumov, and it's called City of Club. And it also won a prize in the competition of a Japanese magazine, Architecture and Urbanism, a competition that was called Style for the year 2001. It shows an intervention into the standard panel housing area in Moscow. It looks at the empty territories between the houses and projects constructivist elements that could be used to build open-ended and transformable structures where the users themselves could decide on possible functions. Like he shows the amateur clubs, dovecotes, mini theaters, pavilions, and the users can adapt the environment over time. So employing this kind of black iron girders and diagonal rods and red flags, it is reminiscent of early avant-garde projects of 1920s of the early Soviet Union. But here it was dispersed across the whole housing area. And as the text of the project describes, the problem with the standard microdistricts lay in the lack of communication between people and their corresponding isolation. So the project hoped to undo this kind of alienation and isolation of people in these housing areas. On a broader scale, this article makes an argument about how these architectural interventions could be viewed as acting politically in the public. So on the one hand, the late Soviet paper architecture was a media for discussions with colleagues and professional friends and partners, including in virtual form, through participation in international and professional networks. In this exhibition, in my opinion, paper architecture functioned as a media for bringing nonconformist ideas to the public sphere. And this was an interesting moment politically because it was right before the so-called perestroika that was initiated by Mikhail Gorbachev a few years later. So I make this argument that the plurality of the voices of different authors that can be found on this exhibition can be read as a beginning of the loss of a single political authority in the whole country.